As pro-life Americans focusing on defending life in our own country, we often forget that fighting the culture of death takes an international effort. We'll talk about that tonight, so please stay with us. Thank you, and welcome. I'm Father Mitch Pacwa, and welcome to EWTN Live, where we bring you guests from all over the world. This time, our guest travels all over the world. He's gone nearly 1 million miles and visited over 60 nations to spread the gospel of life since he became the president of Human Life International 5 years ago. It's a lot of miles in 5 years. And he's here tonight to give us an update on what he's been seeing on the global mission field with regard to the life issues. Please welcome a good friend of the network and my own friend, Father Shenan Boquet.
Good to be with you, Father.
Good to have you here.
It's good to be with our EWTN family again.
Yes, sir. Good to have you here. And you are, just going to and fro across the face of the earth. But why are you doing that? Why do you travel so much in your job?
Sure. Well, the primary, mission of Human Life International, when Father Marks founded it, was really an educational apostolate.
Just let people know, a lot of folks don't remember Father Marks.
Yeah.
Father Paul Marks.
Father Paul Marks, and he was a Benedictine priest, and he founded first Human Life Center in 1972. And as he was dealing with the after effects of Humanae Vitae, and of course the great descent that we saw within the society, within the church, and realized that if he didn't take the message of life and the sanctity of the family, to a global environment, a global conversation, that what was happening in the U.S. and Europe was going to just spread like wildfire. Mm-hmm. And and even though with all the work that's been done since, we realize today that wildfire is still very active.
Yes,
that message truly has moved around the world. And so in 1981, Father Marks, founded Human Life International, to take that message to a global conversation.
And I think it's important for folks to understand that part of the context was a panic of overpopulation.
Correct.
Back in 67, 68, or 66, the population bomb.
Right.
Yeah, I know it was mid-60s, I think it was 66 or so.
The year I was born.
Oh.
I was part of the problem, you see.
I guess that's where they saw it, because they never saw themselves as the problem. But they predicted that by 1985 or so, there'd be 8 billion people. Right. We'd be overwhelmed. And the 60s were just the ending of the post-World War II famines. Correct. That was coming to a close. New types of rice and other crops were improving, and starvation was diminishing, except where politicians blocked food from getting in, like today in Somalia, Ethiopia, and other places. But that panic motivates people to be so anti-birth and so anti-baby. Right. And he could see this coming.
He did. And of course, when we're dealing, as you just mentioned, when we're dealing with corrupt systems, corrupt ideologies, and what we mean by ideologies would be a false understanding of the family, like we're seeing play out in our own day today, where we see the issues of gender ideology play out, we see the issues around homosexuality play out. All these are part of that equation.
And non-marriage.
Exactly.
People just not getting married, but, giving birth to babies without
any
commitment.
Consideration. Exactly. So Father Mark saw, so much of that beginning to emerge. And then just as, with Paul VI, now Blessed Paul VI, prophesied that if the world embraced this contraceptive mentality, that what would emerge would be this anti-life, not only mentality, but this whole way of life that would be very self-centered. and governments would be able to use population control as a method, for corrupt systems, and we would see the exploitation of women, we would see the breakdown in the family, and here we are. And here we are. And so what Father Mark saw was that, that if we don't bring the message of life and family, to that global conversation and continue to form minds and hearts and help people to see that what makes a healthy society is a healthy family, that when we love our family, we promote the culture of the family, the indissolubility, the beautiful exclusivity of marriage and the openness to life is what will produce a healthy culture. And that's what we're all after. It's amazing. That's the remedy.
And one of the things that I certainly like about one book I read on this, parents, well, first of all, spouses need to know that they are irreplaceable for each other.
Correct.
And with their children, they are the irreplaceable parents.
Right.
There are times when somebody dies or some other tragedy happens,
right,
and somebody has to help, but you will never have anyone but your father is your father, exactly, and your mother is your mother, whether you know them or not, and whether
exactly,
they love you and show responsibility to you or not.
Right. And we've seen with social science is even proving the fact that, showing what we've already known is that, the healthiest place for a child to be born is with the child's biological father and biological mother. And,
exactly,
and so we're seeing even social science recognize this. And so this is that great message that we want to bring. And it's interesting, I've been rereading Cardinal Sarah's book, God or Nothing, and the last part of the book actually makes reference to the ideologies that are being put forth by the Western world. So obviously we're referring here to the United States, to Canada, to Europe,
Australia,
developed countries that are trying to impose upon Africa and Asia their own ideology, and,
right,
and rejecting the true cultures of a people that love family, respect life, and have a great, in a sense, a great religiosity about the family. They love the family.
And again, that's one of the problems for folks in the West as their populations steadily go down. Also in Japan,
correct,
they're now trying to get Japanese people to work longer,
right,
and not retire,
right,
at 60 or 65, but to work long because they don't have any people.
Exactly.
And they want this especially in Africa and Asia and Latin America because they're most terrified,
right,
of the population explosion with all these poor people. We can't have them.
Right. Right.
But that's not the way Africans look at having the babies.
No, not at all. And it's interesting that, statistics in the United States, which I think most Americans are not familiar with, is that the fertility rates, so basically if we look at the replacement, so basically a husband and wife replacing themselves means 2 children. So we would say that in any healthy family, which is still very low, that 3 children, is a good number, not that we promote a number, but the idea that, that 3 children, 4 children, because anything can happen to one of your children, and so you're in a way, quote, not replacing yourself, but we don't want to go down how many children people should have, but the idea of being open to life, supporting life, but in the United States, it's 1.8. And it's been like that now for a few years. So we're not even at replacement level. No. We look at Europe,
exactly,
1.3. The median age in Europe is 55 years of age. So you look at Africa, the median age is between 17 and 20. You look at the Philippines, it's between 17 and 20. So you have some very young, vibrant families and cultures. And what you said is very true, that there are those that are very frightened of those numbers. And so part of what the population control of what Blessed Paul VI spoke about is now being fulfilled, because what does the Western world need? It needs resources. It needs minerals and various other resources and support itself. Mm-hmm. So where is it going to get that? And so we look at other parts of the world where we see corrupt governments, corrupt systems. Here in the United States, and again, I think the American people really don't realize how much money has been spent in Africa and around the world on population control. And I'm going to hit them with some numbers so that they really think about this. Since 1996.
So it's just 20 years.
20 years. So in 20 years, just in Africa alone, so the United States and other Western countries pushing population control have spent over $65 billion in Africa alone. Since 1996, 135 billion worldwide. And and you look at this, and when you look at the Western world, so you look at the U.S., you look at Europe, particularly Central Western Europe, particularly. We can talk a little bit about what's going on in Eastern Europe, a very different, reality happening there. But when you look at the Western world, and you look at how their cultures are dying, why? Because the openness to life, the fidelity to marriage is disintegrating right in front of their eyes, and yet they want to pass that poison on to other people, not seeing that they themselves are rapidly dying. And if they don't change their outlook, and they don't change their position, they don't change their ideology, if you will, they're going to fade away. Yeah. And what's going to replace are people like the Africans and many parts of Asia and Latin America.
It's already going on. You go to Western Europe, the population growth is among immigrants from Africa, Turkey, and Asia. Correct. And the Europeans don't have names. Let's get a little bit of a sense of this. We have some, Africans standing up for their values. And one of the places that's been very successful is in Uganda. Correct? So let's take a look at something that we have there. Do you want to prepare us for it?
Sure. What the audience is going to see is our Father Jonathan Opio, who's our director since 2010 in Uganda, and he's been dealing with about a year now a bill that was being pushed by its own government. Obviously supported by many non-governmental agencies and organizations wanting to impose contraception and abortion on the Ugandan people. So what happened was so many families were concerned about what could happen here. And just to let again, our family understand is that what this bill would have done, if become law, it would have meant that the contraception and abortion could have been given or provided to a 10-year-old girl. At 10 years of age. And so without any parental consent.
Or knowledge.
Yeah. So
they want what has been imposed by our federal government and by our courts on many states. States that have tried to require parental consent run into trouble because of the federal government imposing its will on the states. Let's take a look at the clip and see what's going on there.
I am Father Jonathan Opio, a priest from the Archdiocese of Tororo, in the eastern part of Uganda. I am the country director of Human Life International here in Uganda. I was designated in 2010 to help in the efforts to evangelize and to spread the word, the gospel of life in this country. We know very well that in this country, there are many forces now that are trying to destroy the family. We have been trying our best to train the people, to give them the necessary skills that they really need in order to live a happier, healthy life, and also sensitizing the people about abortion and the protection of the family through natural family planning, which is what we think the people need, because their dignity will be guaranteed, but also their families will be built through communication.
So that's pretty cool. I mean, he knows what's going on and is able to awaken his own folks to these influences imposing Western culture of death on their culture of life.
And this is what Father Mark's, returning to him for a moment, is, always saw that, it wasn't that Human Life International would go into a community and take over a work. It was recognizing people like Father Jonathan Opio, leaders within the community that are willing to step out and witness, to the sanctity of life, to promote the culture of life. And because they know the language, they know the people, they know the political system, they know the environment. And so, what he's been dealing with now for a year actually just became a victory just a few days ago, because through education, working with the Minister of Health, working with parliamentarians, working with the local bishops, the priests, and just people in leadership positions, exposing the agenda of the population control, exposing what would happen, even to the point of taking documents that have been pushed by various organizations, promoting that agenda and showing the lies in the document. As a result, the Minister of Health put an end to the bill. So now it doesn't mean it's going to go away permanently.
No.
It just means for right now, there's been a victory. And in this climate, when we're all looking for victories, you see a man like Father Opio and all the people working with him, including the Conference of Bishops of Africa. In July, while I was in Dar es Salaam, they had
which is in
Tanzania.
Yeah, a lot of folks don't know. We're not as familiar as we should be with Africa, but Dar es Salaam is in Tanzania.
And they were holding in their Episcopal Conference for all of the continent of Africa in Madagascar. And they released a beautiful pastoral on the family. And they purposely named, organizations that are there promoting, the anti-family agenda. And so they called them to task and defended the family and promoted, one, helping education, helping people to understand the issues. So very proud of the African bishops because they're protecting their own.
Yes.
They're protecting their families. And in a few weeks ago, you had Bishop Olmsted on your program.
Yes.
And, and he was here to talk about his beautiful pastoral that he released last fall, into the breach. Calling men, calling fathers, and calling men to step out and to defend their own, to defend the family, to defend the weak within society. And our bishops are fathers too. And and so I was very proud to see the African bishops stand very firm in a 7-page document, just defending the family. So Father Opio had a lot of resource coming toward him. And because of his determination and because of the resources that we could provide to him, he was able to expose the lies and have a victory. And so we're very proud of him and very, very proud of what's happening in Uganda.
In something important for the viewers who live in the Western world, the United States and Europe, Western Europe, we need to take responsibility. We don't live in Africa,
right, but
we put politicians into office who sometimes try very hard. Is it not the case that in American foreign aid is often tied into
Correct.
whether or not you will support abortion, birth control, and same-sex marriage,
Absolutely.
or you don't get food?
Exactly. We just got to travel back in time, to the debate in Kenya, again, where this conversation of which you speak was very evident. And it was still currently Vice President Joe Biden that basically said, if the Kenyan government changes its position, rewrites its constitution to open itself up to the anti-life agenda, the money will flow. It's a direct quote. The money will flow. So currently we have one of the presidential candidates, and obviously what she's in the Lincoln Center back in 2015, speaking about the agenda. She clearly again says that, that we must force or make these conversations reality. In other words, governments that will not open themselves to promoting contraception, abortion, and the rights of women, reproductive health rights, then the money should not be given.
Right.
So it's clear what's happening from our political leaders.
And that it's not based on needs as the local people understand what they need.
Correct.
But it's understood by, we think you need
Right.
to reduce your population. whether you do or not, and we'll give you money if you do what we say. I saw this in Peru when I worked there, that they got foreign aid only if they bought equipment from an American company who made equipment that was inferior to the task. It was good for what it was doing, but it was not the right industrial grade, but they would get nothing. So then they ended up getting money spent on tools that broke and sat there rather than tools that really helped them do their work. That were
well, imagine when I was in Dar es Salaam in Tanzania recently, as I mentioned, I was sitting down with one of the ministers of the government, and I asked a question. I said, "Are you familiar with Marie Stopes? Are you familiar with Planned Parenthood?" Just kind of talking about various groups that are working in Africa, and Marie Stopes is present in Tanzania.
And she is
one of the largest providers of abortion, working in Africa.
Marie Stopes personally?
No, Marie Stopes Foundation, which is working pretty much on the African front, whereas Planned Parenthood Federation or International, works, in a different, mostly their abortions are done here in the States for Planned Parenthood. In the rest of the world, they're advocating. Planned Parenthood advocates for the legalization of abortion, whereas Marie Stopes is actually, their hands are in the blood. They're actually performing the abortions and doing them in countries where it's legal or illegal. And so she says, I'm familiar with them, and I said, so I turned the question around and I said, imagine if we can take the $65 billion that the United States and other Western countries have spent in Africa alone since 1996, what would Tanzania be able to do with $65 billion? Without any corrupt systems, everything is really transparent, clean water, good highways, good medical care, good educational systems, infrastructure to support the family. This is what the Africans need. But
they need
unfortunately,
hospitals where you save lives, not abortion clinics where you take lives.
And I think what many people don't realize is that the African continent, the people themselves, the Africans, in their very core, and what some people would call a religiosity. They love life. They love family. And it's built, it's there. They have a great respect for a woman who's pregnant. They have a great love of their family. They're elderly. They care for each other. They're generous. Even when they have little, they're so generous.
Yes.
And they're life-giving. The joy. When you meet an African and you really get a chance to talk with them, you come away with a spirit of great joy. And this is what's so sad. And in Cardinal Sarah, in his book, he talks about this, and he says that you have the Western world coming in and wanting to impose its own toxic ideology upon a people who love life. And so who are you who reject life to come here and impose yourself upon us and tie it to aid and tie it to some kind of gift, and that you condition that gift, which is needed. I mean, they do need help. There is a great need in many parts of Africa where they don't have access to clean water, where they are dealing with malaria and don't have access to malaria nets. They don't have good hospitals to care for their sick. They don't have good educational systems, and the roads can be very deplorable. They do need assistance, but not tied to contraception and abortion.
Our government has told some of the African governments, we'll give you medicine and malaria prevention if you accept abortion.
Correct.
That's cruel. And to my mind, it is in direct continuity with the slave trade. That if you do what we tell you, we'll give you some crumbs. But it is the colonies of the Europeans taken over. It's the slave trade again, that you can be killed or let to live insofar as you are useful to us in the West. And that is no different.
Exactly. And when you look at it, and Pope Francis has really put a kind of a term to it called it the global colonization. So basically, colonial imperialism being imposed upon people. And you look at this, and our director in Dar es Salaam, who is over our Anglophone, English-speaking part of Africa, he says what the Africans need don't need is contraception and abortion. What they do need is the things we've been talking about.
Water, malaria,
exactly.
medicine, etc.
And I remember
medical schools
exactly.
to train doctors.
Exactly. I remember him telling me a story, that where there was an organization handing out malaria nets, but the condition upon which you would receive the net is you had to go to a course on contraception, on family planning.
Yep.
That's how you receive this malaria net. So, and this is just one story among many, but to see Father Jonathan Opio be able to expose the language of illusion, to expose the agenda, and to really bring it, and again, just recently meeting with the bishops and getting the bishops involved, getting the local churches involved, and getting the community involved and parents involved, saying, they're trying to take away your parental right and oversight and duty to be the one that knows what's best for your child.
You have American politicians who think that they should control your family better than you can.
And coming from a country that has a growing divorce rate, the issues affecting our own culture, it's interesting that one of the things that we try to do in our work is how to build a culture of life. And so if I look at the culture that we live in here in the United States, we see a degrading culture. We see the family structure. We see the character of the family that is indeed at its root, called to be lived in Christ. We see that Christian culture that disintegrating around us. So how do we rebuild that culture? And so part of what we do is you look at Africa and you look at what they value and you build on those values. And because the root is still strong, you can do what Father Jonathan Opio did. You can raise the awareness, call people in a way to arms, to speak, to defend. In our country, we have lost so much ground that most people don't understand the issues. They don't see the importance of protection of every human life. They don't see the problem with contraception. They don't see the issue with abortion. And and I know that many people in the pro-life movement, especially in the States, really feel that there is there's a momentum in change, and that there is a tremendous amount of change in people's minds about abortion. There's no doubt about that. But we are nowhere near where we can overturn that moment, in the next year or two, because people are still so indifferent and so politically minded that they're not thinking from a moral ethic. They're not thinking from a Christian root. They're not thinking from what Bishop Olmsted said, from a culture that is rooted in Jesus Christ. And we build from that root. So this is what we've been fortunate in many parts of Africa where Christianity and Catholicism is strong, where we're able to build on that very root and to call the people to see what will happen to them. And I often say this in all my travels, is that if you want to see what will happen if you embrace this mentality, look at the United States, look at Europe. This is what you will be in 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now.
I can certainly remember people criticizing third world countries. Oh, life is cheap in those places. Whereas meanwhile, we're the ones who've cheapened life from conception to the end of life. And so we have a lot to undo. I want to take a break, just let you know that you can go to find more information about Human Life International by going to their website, hli.org, hli.org for Human Life International. Or you can call their 800 number, 800-549-5433. Find out more about what they're doing globally. We'll be back in just 2 minutes. We want to get your questions and comments, as well as those from our studio audience, so please stay with us. Thank you, and welcome back. First, I want to invite you to come down and join us. We love having you come on pilgrimage here, be part of our studio audience. You can contact our pilgrimage department by calling them at 205-271-2966, or go online to EWTN.com, and they'll give you all kind of information about places to stay, scheduling of programs, of course the masses, and how to get up to Hansville to go pray with the sisters and visit there. It's beautiful. I know that Teresa Tomeo is going to be having a big pilgrimage going up there later on September, and we love having folks come here. It's just a lot of fun. Also, want to mention that 40 Days for Life is something that's going on to prepare for the election, September 28th to November 6th. Will be celebration of 40 Days for Life. And you can get a hold of them by going to 40daysforlife.com or call their number 888-LIFE 316. 888-LIFE Life 316. The goal is to try and save babies. But they'll be doing this in the period before our election to remind us that this is a very important issue in the way we think and vote. I know some people say, you can't be one-issue voters. Would that everybody had been one issue for saving the Jews in 1932 or 33. Sometimes issues of life override other issues, and how much money's in our wallet may or may not be as important, especially if you're dead. So this is a very important issue. We want to bring that to prominence. Okay? You ready for some questions?
I sure am. And before we take a question, I think Archbishop Gomez, recently
of Los Angeles
said a beautiful that this election really is about life. I mean,
yeah.
So when our audience really is thinking, well, where's the church in this conversation? Archbishop Gomez of Los Angeles made it very clear that the issue here is about the protection of human life.
And it's important for all of us as voters to speak up within our own political parties, whichever one it might be, to convince them we don't want you to attack life.
Right.
And that, if you are pro-death, we want you to change. If you want my vote, this is, you may like policies of one party or another, and that's fine. But we also have to keep these moral issues in priority.
Exactly.
Not every moral issue is the same,
right.
And life and death is a high one. Let's take a call. We have Tim on the line. Tim, where are you calling from?
From Wisconsin, Father.
Great. And what's your question?
Yes, when Pope Francis was first elected, he made a comment that we talk too much about abortion and contraception. To me, that was kind of shocking. That'd be like telling the Jewish people that we talk too much about the Holocaust. I'd like to hear one or both of you comment on that.
Sure. Thank you, Tim.
Sure. I mean, I think we do take it in its whole. Mm-hmm. Pope Francis has also made some, other comments all through his pontificate in support of family and life. Even to the point of, calling out the radical agendas and saying, how dare you attack our children? And most recently talking about the issues about gender ideology. Mm-hmm. So, when I look at the comments, though there may be some disappointment in one or two, or things may kind of make me turn my head and say, okay, what do you mean? But I take it in its whole. I look at the whole message. And I look at, many things that the Holy Father, when in 2015, beginning of the year, coming back from Manila, he talked about that global colonization and really challenged people to say, we should not be tying, aid and assistance, to the issues of life and family. We should not be equating the issues affecting our climate and our environment to the death of a child.
Right. He said he wrote in Laudato Si that aborting children is not a solution to helping the environment.
Exactly.
You know, he was very clear on that. So, you know, he may have been talking about some specific situation, but he does also speak about how important it is to include abortion and not see it as a solution.
And I think that, again, just to reiterate what we talked about before taking our first question with Tim, is to stress the importance that, if we cannot protect human life, if we cannot protect the sanctity of every human life, our cultures and our societies will continue to falter. We will not find what we are searching for at the cost of another human being.
Exactly.
And it's important that we see that. And I think that, our audience needs to, as you mentioned, Father, which I want to stress, we need to be involved. We can't just sit on our couches and say, hey, we need to do something. No, how about I need to get off of my couch and get involved. And very important for all of us to see the importance of protecting human life.
That's what 40 Days for Life is. Another group is praying for our country, saying a rosary every day for our country. There are a number of things you can do, as well as go volunteer at a local place where there's crisis pregnancy centers where you can help out, get food and clothing for new babies and all that. Help these women.
And I think the thing too,
scared.
exactly. And in your own community, you might have a crisis pregnancy center that you can be involved in. You can pray outside of an abortion facility. You might even get involved in a haven where there's a shelter for women and families. There's so much that we as a people of God can be doing to show that we value human life. And as you mentioned, again, we need to get involved in the political conversation. We need to raise awareness within those wanting to serve in political office, those currently in political office, and again, reiterate, that life is of most importance in our conversation, and you will never get my vote, you will never get my support as long as you put these two together. So
even if I like everything else you do.
Exactly.
But this is not acceptable.
Exactly.
Let's take a question from our studio audience. Sir, where are you from?
From New Jersey.
Good to have you here. And what is your question or comment?
My question is, my wife and I have run across a number of people in other Catholic churches that are voting for pro-abortion candidates. And when we bring it up, they don't really care. So my question is there anything that the U.S. Council of Bishops can come up with, a program that could filter down to the parish priests so they can actually talk about this from the pulpit?
Thank you. Great question.
It's a very important one. And one of the things that we see globally when referring to talking about these issues, the first thing is to really to help our priests to talk about the issues. Many of them don't talk about it at all. So that's the first thing we have to do, is encourage and even work among our brothers as priests to say we have an obligation to help our faithful understand the issues. So we have to educate, and there are programs out there that are available, in many organizations that are out there educating people. For example, Human Life International is one of them. You have Priests for Life working here in the United States. You have, many other groups that are really forming hearts and minds, and priests can avail themselves to these various websites to help them with homily preparation, and find questions and answers.
Catholic Answers has that.
EWTN has a beautiful section as well on their library section.
Right.
So there's so many places where we can go to find the resources. And the Catholic Conference of Bishops does have on their website, under their pro-life section, a gambit of resources available. And even their pro-life office is very much available. They make a number of programs tied into catechesis, tied into adult formation. It's just a matter of them using it. So one of the things that we have a problem with, there's lots of material, but it doesn't mean that they're going to be used. And I think that's where I would challenge, our bishops and our priests, that, we need to use these resources to help our people understand the issues. That if we want to truly bring a cultural change in our own country, then we have to teach.
Right.
And we can't be indifferent, and we can't be scared of the issues. And we're kind of been pigeonholed that we can't talk about certain issues. That's not true. We can talk about these issues. We can get into the root of the problem and help people see that there's a huge difference between an abortion and paving a highway in an election. There are many differences, and if we're not helping our people to understand those differences, then we can't blame anyone but ourselves when we see the elections go in ways that truly do not protect human life.
Right.
We blame ourselves.
I helped work with a local Protestant minister, Bishop James Lowe, who, and together he, I, and some other ministers are trying to come up with ways to reflect on the 10 Commandments.
Yes.
So we put them online. If you're interested, go to Gatekeepers Association of Alabama, because we want also non-Catholics in the pulpit to be speaking and addressing these concerns, but to do so with thinking on the basis of revelation to help folks deal with that.
Yes.
I have another question. Mary, are you there?
Hi, Pastor Mitch.
Hi, where are you from?
Originally Cleveland, Ohio.
And?
Now Orlando, Florida.
Yeah. Is it raining?
Yeah, it's been raining on and off all day.
Yeah. Big
More
storms
in
coming
there.
in.
We'll keep you in prayer.
Yeah. So what's your question?
I wanted to make a comment.
Yeah.
First of all, I'm enjoying your show.
Thank you.
And my husband and I, although he passed away 2.5 years ago, but he's looking out for the grandchildren. We've got 14 grandchildren. We have 5 grown children. They're all married. They all have beautiful spouses, beautiful, healthy children. My one son, his wife gave birth about 10 days ago to their 6th child.
Yeah.
And I thought people would rejoice and be happy. They're like, they have a lot of nerve having that many kids.
Yep.
But wondering, even some of my own relatives, and I don't know how to answer. I don't want to get mad at them.
Why not? That's your grandbaby.
I have already gotten mad. My Irish temper. Oh my gosh, growing up with 6 brothers. Oh. But how do you,
Your question is good, because I hear it all the time. Moms will be in the store and they'll have 4, 5, 6 kids like this, and people will, speak to them. Back in the 1950s, before you were born, Groucho Marx got taken off the air. He lost his weekly show that was one of the top ones because he criticized a man for having a large family, made fun of him. And what would you say for her to tell these folks?
Well, I think the most important thing is stand your ground. Don't let people intimidate you or make you feel bad because you're open to life. And I think we see this in Front Royal, Virginia, where Human Life International's headquarters is located. You see large families in large vans filled with, many, many kids. And family life is the great resource. John Paul II said the greatest resource is the human person. And so open to life and cooperating with God and participating in this great gift of life, is something to cherish. And we should be proud of, when we are open to life and God blesses a husband and wife with the gift of a child, a new gift to this wonderful world, and to have an influence in this world, to be a sign of hope in this world. And so when people make fun of that, what they're making, to me, it's a sign of hopelessness. They're making fun of a culture that really celebrates death, and a child is one that represents life, and very important for us to talk about.
And I think, one of the things you might be able to say to them, as your friends, I don't know what age they are when they make these criticisms, but you might want to say, someday you'll be old enough that the toys you bought, the boats, the cars, the nice houses, will be useless to you when you're sick, you're in your last illness. I will have my grandchildren around my bed, and they'll know that I love them, and I'll die knowing they love me. Keep your toys.
Exactly.
I will love my children and my grandchildren. And God willing, you'll live long enough, Mary, to see your great-grandchildren.
And Mary, maybe you can relate this story. There's a lady in the Philippines, she had 13 children. And she tells the funny story that now all her children are raised, some are priests, some are doctors, some are teachers, some are nuns, and she's just talking about them. And she says, and my children are such a blessing. She says, and here I am in my older age, and Mama, come see me. I live in Canada. Mama, come to the United States. Mama, come here. And she says, there's only 12 months a year. I get an extra month every time. But her children send her resources. And she says, and I give it away. She says, I don't need all that money. She says, I share it with people in greater need. Yeah. And here's a woman who understands her greatest treasure really are her children and her grandchildren and her family. And in the Philippines, when you see people take care of their elderly, and where do we put, sadly in the United States, in Western cultures, where do we put most of our elderly? We place them in homes away from us so that we're not bothered, so that we can play with our toys and we can enjoy our material things, but we negate our family obligation. And I think there's a way to respond to people to open their eyes. And I agree with you, Mary, sometimes you have to raise your voice too. So being angry is not a bad thing, but teaching them.
Especially when they say something that bad. What do you want me to do, give them back where they came from?
Well, a funny story, Father, is I had a friend of mine who's a physician, and I'm not going to say where from because I don't want to say it on TV, but I was in a room and with him and with a family, and the mother was having some difficulties. And the doctor makes the statement, well, you probably have a lot of stress due to your children. And so I jokingly said, well, which one would you like me to kill? And he just paused, because part of the comment he was making is that the problem is that you have too many children.
Right.
No, the problem isn't that she doesn't have too many children. The problem is that raising a family requires a lot of responsibility, and some things are maybe weighing heavy on her. She needs help. Yeah. She needs her family to step in and help, not make fun of her children or make her feel guilty because she has a larger family, because she was open to life. So many people, from our doctors, and and we see this in Uganda, in parts of Africa, or many other parts of the world, where they'll go for a gynecological exam, and the doctor says, well, how many children do you have? Oh, I have 3, I have 4. Well, it's probably, don't you think you ought to maybe consider not having any more children? And we have to be able to respond to people like that. How dare you? Say that to me. Yeah. We have to be capable to articulate that anti-life mentality is disrespectful.
Exactly.
And we should not tolerate that.
Yeah, exactly. Sir, where are you from?
I'm from Colorado, Father.
Good to have you here.
Thank you.
Beautiful state. And what is your question?
I was interested, to the best of your knowledge, Father, has the financial aid our country has sent to Africa over the decades always had these types of anti-life strings attached, or has it ever varied depending on if we had a Republican Congress holding the purse strings as opposed to a Democratic Congress?
Very good question, and thank you very much. And I think it's important. It does depend on the administration that we have in the White House. And so under the Hyde Amendment, of course, and we recognize that
money would not be used, but now we see where that amendment is being challenged and being threatened. Right. I know Mr. Kane has said that they want to change the Hyde Amendment. Exactly. Because the federal government is not allowed to pay for abortion in this country. Correct. That's correct. But the other thing too is a lot of these changes have depended on presidential executive orders. Right. So one president will say, no, we're not going to pay for any more abortion. Correct. And then the next guy says, I know with President Obama, the first day he was in, he signed executive orders to promote abortion, especially in the third world. Exactly, and I think that's why we need to change, the fact that the president should not have that ability. I mean, my view is that we have to change the law. We have to change where we're not ever going to use any tax money to support this industry. But that requires that we have to change the minds and hearts of our political personalities. We have to get to the men and women that are serving in public office and say to them, this is unacceptable. We should not allow this to happen. But again, that takes the American people to stand together and to say that we will not accept this. This is it's unacceptable. We will not tolerate the use of our money to pay for abortion, not only in our own nation. We should not be using tax money abroad and using it to persuade other people to change their life-saving laws. And when you think how the Congress, now this is where Congress does get involved in terms of financing Planned Parenthood.
Correct.
How much do they finance the pregnancy crisis centers around the country?
Right.
Do they?
They don't.
They don't.
They don't.
So the places that are giving direct medical care for women who are pregnant,
correct,
they don't get anything.
So turn that money around. So if we, for example, if we take the amount of money being spent domestically to support the abortion industry, to support the contraceptive industry, and we turn around and take that money and invest it in the family to provide the resources for family life. You know, I mean,
or even better yet, why get the federal government doing any of it?
Sure.
Lower our taxes, and let us contribute to whom we want without the federal government, because then they might put their own regulations on what you can do, what you can say. That happens.
Agreed.
The Catholic organizations that have been trying to stop human trafficking, slavery, sexual slavery, have lost funding because they won't give abortion and birth control.
Exactly.
So we don't have the federal government
stay out of it.
Because it changes if it's for abortion or not. Get them out of that
altogether
and let us use our money for the people we want to help. And you know, I don't want people to help Planned Parenthood because of what they do, but you know, I'm not here to say that the federal government has to stop them from doing it. Neither should they stop the rest of us from giving support to pregnancy crisis centers.
Good point. Yeah.
Let's have another caller. Hello, Chuck.
Yo.
Hey, where are you calling from?
Oh, the Republic of Texas.
Ain't you something? Salute. What is your question, Chuck?
Well, I've heard for years about the money that's going overseas, tied to the abortion, contraception, etc. And your last interview with the gentleman, you mentioned the Congress, etc. I want to know names. Can you give names of congressmen, government officials who are responsible for making decisions? I know the character in the White House is one of them, but who else? So that we can hold them accountable, vote them out, get rid of them.
Yeah, I think just today, Senator Reid was certain. The Senate tried to pass a bill to stop funding Planned Parenthood, and so that was voted down because of that. It was so you have to go to the congressional record.
Correct, and all their voting records are public, so you can actually pull them up by name, and you can look at their voting records, and it's a clear way to know exactly what each person has done and not done.
Right.
And then what you do is you look at their track record, and obviously when we see that their track record is anti-life, and they're supporting, the abortion industry and contraceptive industry, then we need to raise awareness and say this person should not be serving us in public office.
And don't assume that just because somebody belongs to one party that they're pro-life, or the other party they're anti-life.
That's correct.
There are people in both parties who can have either way.
That's correct.
And some very pro-life Democrats.
That's right.
And very anti-life Republicans.
That's right. That's why their voting records are so important.
Yeah, that's why you have to, and I don't keep tabs except for what we have here locally in Alabama.
Well, I know that some local and regional right-to-life groups actually do track the records of their local politicians. So it would be good maybe for our audience to get in touch with the National Right to Life, look at the local pro-life groups in their communities, and who usually put out they put out articles, they put out advertisements, and find out exactly.
And they give you the phone numbers of those congressmen and senators to be able to say, look, this is against my conscience, and I want you to vote. And if they answer you back, well, we don't vote on the basis of your religion. No, this is not. This is a moral issue.
Exactly.
and it doesn't matter if you're Catholic or not. You're dead, you're dead. Again, I want to give the information. It's hli.org to find out more, or call the number 800-549-5433. And thank you for the good work that you're doing, and that so many folks in HLI are doing throughout the whole world. This is a tremendous, tremendous amount of work. If you join me in giving a blessing to our audience, may Almighty God bless you and keep you and cause His face to shine upon you, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And I would be remiss, Father is from Louisiana. If you can help the folks in Louisiana through Catholic Charities or the Knights of Columbus and other groups, do so. The devastation is horrendous, horrendous. They don't have beds, clothes, and anything. Please do what you can to help. And also keep us in between your gas bill and electric bill, because we also have our bills to pay. We appreciate your help and support very much, especially in these summer months. God bless you, and thank you.